It's Walkout Wednesday. Now, teachers in England and Wales join a nation of striking workers demanding better conditions and more pay.
We are wanting a fully funded pay rise. We want an in line with inflation, 12%.
What they have been pushing is for an inflation-busting pay rise this year, and what we've said very clearly is that is not on the table.
Also this lunchtime, flowers for a 4-year-old killed by a dog in a back garden in Milton Keynes. Could your breakfast be killing you? The ultra-processed foods like cereal and crisps that may increase your risk of cancer. And
here is Almiron.
Are the Toon Army heading for trophy glory? Celebrations as Newcastle United reach their first cup final in decades.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. Strikes have now hit schools across England and Wales. We don't yet know how many pupils are impacted. We do know teachers from the biggest teaching union are taking action over their pay and their conditions at work. The Education Secretary said today the government cannot agree to what she described as an inflation-busting pay rise. So is there any chance this dispute can be resolved before the next strike date, especially given the walkout is hitting the same children who lost months of education because of the pandemic? Here's Faye Barker.
Helen Jones is a science teacher in Leeds, but instead of preparing for the classroom this morning, her day was destined for the picket line. Joining colleagues outside her school, her message was clear.
We're striking because we are wanting a fully funded pay rise. The government has given us 5% that wasn't fully funded, which means that the money is coming out of school budgets. But we want an in line with inflation, 12%.
What do we want? Funding and pay. When do we want it? Now!
More than 100,000 members of the National Education Union are estimated to be on strike today, affecting around 23,000 schools across England and Wales.
Pay up! Save our schools!
Chorus of voices calling for better pay to not only keep staff, but to attract new teachers too.
We need the government to really listen to what we're asking and listen to how serious this is. We haven't taken this decision lightly.
Many are highlighting the government simply needs to put more money into education.
People are leaving to even move to supermarkets because they can get paid more. But also another major factor is school funding. And we've seen for the last decade the amount of funds into schools get slashed year on year on year.
Some schools are closed completely, while others have only sent some classes home. And despite the juggle of managing children off school, most parents are supportive.
So it's quite awkward. I've got 2 children off school and 1 child in school. He's not very happy about it, but he understands that he needs to go into school in order to show his support to the teachers.
It's awful, this is the only way to do it, but it's got to be done, so good luck to them.
Yes, I don't know how you feel about the strike today. We've just made some biscuits and brought them in to support the teachers.
Negotiations between the government and the unions are ongoing, but with no signs of progress.
What they have been pushing is for an inflation-busting pay rise this year, and what we've said very clearly is that is not on the table. We cannot risk fueling inflation. We've said very much we take this seriously and we will halve inflation this year. We need to get rid of the problem of inflation for everybody, not just have some people who get above inflation pay rises.
Our strike action is going to make that difference.
Around 70,000 university staff are also taking action in a separate dispute, and teachers in Scotland are into their 3rd week of rolling strikes, as the mood in education is striding towards growing support of further walkouts. Faye Barker, ITV News.
It's thought today's industrial action is the biggest in more than a decade, with up to 500,000 workers taking part. The cost to the economy for today's strikes is estimated at £94 million. That's according to the Centre for Economics and Business Research. As we've just heard in Faye's report, teachers are striking today in England, Wales and parts of Scotland, up to 300,000 of them. Elsewhere, there are strikes in the civil service. Border Force, HMRC and museums are all impacted as part of the 124 government agencies seeing staff walk out today. Higher education staff at more than 150 universities are also taking part in the industrial action, and our transport links are also impacted, with train drivers striking. With more, here's our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan.
From Border Force in Dover to staff at the British Museum, the PCS union represents 100,000 civil servants who are striking today.
What do we want? 10%! When do we want it? Now!
This morning around Westminster, many were picketing government departments.
40,000 civil servants use food banks. 45,000 claim benefits. The people who administer benefits have to claim them because they are so poor. The government knows this. They clapped our members in the pandemic, but now they're driving them into poverty, and that's why we're striking.
University lecturers are also out today and joined other unions marching through Bristol.
We've had a 25% pay cut in the last 10 years. Now we're being offered a further 5% pay cut by the employers, and we've had enough.
We're here, we want to support the teachers, firstly because we believe in workers' rights and it's the right thing to do. Everyone deserves fair pay and fair conditions, and because it's for our education. They're striking for the benefit of our education.
Inevitably, it's not just sectors where there are walkouts that are being hit. With train drivers on strike today, this coffee bar near Birmingham's New Street station is losing business.
It's impacted us heavily today. We're just over 50% down on the normal footfall we usually get into the store. As you can see currently, we have no one in store, so it's affected us heavily.
In central London, the TUC staged a rally protesting against the government's minimum service level legislation. They're confident the public remains on the side of the unions.
When it comes down to a straight battle for public opinion between Jeremy Hunt, Rishi Sunak and our paramedics, our teachers, our civil servants, our university lecturers, I think I know whose side the British public is on, and that's why the government does need to take some responsibility. It needs to listen to their own workforce, they need to listen to the British public, and they need to deliver a fair outcome on pay for public sector workers.
If the country gradually will hold, Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister says big pay rises would lead to higher taxes or more borrowing and could fuel the inflation which undermines everyone's income.
I am clear that our children's education is precious and they deserve to be in school today being taught. And actually the party opposite would do well to say that the strikes are wrong and we should be backing our school children.
Bringing down inflation is one of the 5 pledges the Prime Minister says voters can judge him on. It is expected to come down anyway, but has already eaten into workers' wages. And although dealing with strikes isn't one of his pledges, that may also be something he's judged on. Carl Dinnan, ITV News, Westminster.
Well, striking workers made their voices heard outside Parliament. Inside, they weren't talking about today's industrial action. The topic dominating Prime Minister's questions this lunchtime was the problems in Rishi Sunak's own party that won't go away. Our political correspondent, Harry Horton, was watching. Harry, yet another fiery exchange focusing on problems within the Conservative Party, within government.
Yeah, that's right. And the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, is trying to build this narrative that Rishi Sunak is weak and has failed to live up to his promise to build a government of integrity, professionalism and accountability. Now, over the weekend, of course, one cabinet minister, Nadhim Zahawi, was sacked after being found to be less than fully transparent about his tax affairs. But pressure remains on another member of the cabinet, the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab, who's being investigated over allegations of bullying, which he denies. Now, ITV News understands that at least 24 civil servants have launched formal complaints against Dominic Raab. There have been calls from the head of the Civil Service Union for Mr Raab to be suspended while this investigation is ongoing. Now, interestingly, Dominic Raab was sat next to the Prime Minister during Prime Minister's questions this lunchtime, and Keir Starmer raised the question of why he was still in his post.
How would he feel if one of his friends or relatives was being forced to work for a bully simply because the man at the top was too weak to do anything about it?
When I was made aware of formal complaints, I instructed a leading independent KC to conduct an investigation because I take action when these things happen.
Now, there's a careful choice of words there by the Prime Minister, saying that he wasn't aware of any formal complaints made against the Deputy Prime Minister. Now, this lunchtime, Downing Street was asked repeatedly whether the Prime Minister was aware of any informal complaints about Mr Raab when he was appointed to his role, and couldn't say whether that was the case, which of course raises the question that Rishi Sunak might have known something about Dominic Raab when he was appointed to his position. Now, we don't know when this investigation will conclude. We don't know what it will find, but whilst it's ongoing, this is certainly uncomfortable territory for Rishi Sunak.
Harry Horton, thank you very much. Thank you. A 4-year-old girl has died after being attacked by a dog in Milton Keynes. It happened in the garden of a property just after 5 o'clock yesterday evening. Ellie Pitt is in Milton Keynes for us this lunchtime. Ellie, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, this is an area of Milton Keynes where there are lots of families with children and dogs living here. And yesterday evening at about 5 o'clock, police came to one of these family homes where they found a 4-year-old girl had been killed by a dog. Officers have confirmed that no one else was hurt, that the animal has been humanely destroyed and that no arrests have been made. It's not yet been said what breed the dog was, and today forensic teams have been here carrying out their investigations. And this police cordon and police presence are expected to be here for some time, at least until the end of the day. Neighbours have described the 4-year-old girl as a very happy little girl, and some have come to lay flowers and leave messages of condolence to her family and friends. Tonight at 7 o'clock there will be a vigil held in the grounds of the church just opposite the family home, and that will be the first time that this community will have been able to come together since her death.
Ellie Pitt in Milton Keynes for us this lunchtime. Thank you very much. Thank you. In the United States, the funeral of Tyree Nichols, who died following a brutal police beating, will be held in Memphis later today. Thousands of people are expected to attend to pay their respects to the 29-year-old father, including key figures from the civil rights movement. 5 officers have been fired and charged with murder after shocking body cam footage was released. At a memorial service yesterday, his family asked for his memory to be honoured.
My brother was the most peaceful person you ever met in your life. Most. He's never lifted a finger to nobody, never raised his voice to nobody. If my brother was here today and he had to say something, he would tell us to do this peacefully.
Back here now, and 1,500 patients of the jailed breast surgeon Ian Patterson are being recalled to hospital for their treatment to be investigated. Spire Healthcare, which runs private hospitals, is reviewing all his cases and said the patients in the West Midlands were being called back after their details were recovered from an old computer database. Mr Patterson is serving a 20-year prison sentence for carrying out unnecessary operations, including breast removal. Charlie Frost has the details.
A trusted and well-respected breast surgeon, Ian Patterson abused his power to prey on the fears of his patients.
There's dark moments, I think, for all ladies who are diagnosed as having breast cancer.
Lying to them, telling them they had cancer when they didn't, performing surgery that they never needed.
There's life after this diagnosis. They get their life back.
Frances Perks was one of those women. Patterson gave her a mastectomy, one of 9 operations she was later told were completely unnecessary.
I've got a life sentence for what he's done to me and the operations that I've had and what I've lost and how it's affected me mentally, physically, not only me but my family as well.
An NHS doctor, Patterson also practised at 2 private hospitals in Birmingham run by Spire Healthcare from the early 90s until 2013. In 2017, he was jailed for 20 years. A 2020 inquiry recommending all of his patients be reviewed. Now, having contacted 5,500 people already, Spire Healthcare says it's found the details of a further 1,500 of Patterson's patients on an old IT system. Some date back to the earliest years of his practice. In a statement, the group's medical director said, understandably, it's not been easy to navigate our way around some of these data, which are more than 20 years old. But now that we have been able to extract new patient information, we will write to those patients in the next few weeks to offer them any support they need.
Mr. Patterson, have you got anything to say to your former patients?
Questioned here by ITV News on the day he was jailed, Patterson refused to apologise, never disclosing his motivation for mutilating and traumatising hundreds of women. But it's believed it was probably profit that drove him. He earned more for every operation. While they say they can't put right the wrongs of the past, those that run the hospitals where he committed many of his crimes say they're determined to support his victims. Charlie Frost, ITV News.
In Lancashire, the search is continuing for a mother of two who went missing last Friday. Nicola Bully was last seen walking her dog on a towpath by the river in St Michael's on Wyre. Her spaniel was found loose between the river and a bench where her mobile phone was also found. Next is Lunchtime, why what you eat could increase your risk of getting cancer. New research from Imperial College London has found there may be a link between eating too much ultra-processed food and falling ill. Foods to watch out for include some breakfast cereals, ham, crisps and ice cream. Cancer charities are now calling for warning labels on packaging. Aisha Tull has more.
New research has found eating ultra-processed foods like ice cream, ham, crisps, mass-produced bread and breakfast cereal may increase your risk of cancer. A study funded by two leading cancer charities suggests there may be a link between such processed foods and a higher chance of getting all types of cancer. The study said the link could not be proven because it's based on observations where participants had to remember what they ate. But they said people in the UK eat far too many ultra-processed foods and has called for warning labels on the front of packaging. So, what are these ultra-processed foods? They usually contain ingredients you wouldn't add when making homemade meals, like chemicals, colourings, sweeteners and preservatives to extend shelf life. They're most commonly found in the UK in shop-bought mass-produced bread, ready meals, various breakfast cereals, reconstituted meat products like ham, sweets and shop-bought biscuits, buns and cakes. But not all processed food is bad. The NHS says some foods need processing to make them safe, like milk, which has to be pasteurised to remove bacteria. They also add that having a balanced diet is important and encourage people to eat more fruit and veg and cut back on food and drink that have lots of fat, sugar and salt.
Now, if you're currently sipping a coffee bought from the high street, you might be getting more or less caffeine than you bargained for. A study from the consumer group Which has found huge differences in how much caffeine is put in drinks from 5 coffee shop chains, with an espresso from Pret having 6 times as much as one from Starbucks. The 80s music star Bonnie Tyler has received her MBE today for her services to music. The 71-year-old's biggest hits include Holding Out for a Hero and, of course, Total Eclipse of the Heart, the latter of which sold over 6 million copies. And another music legend, Sir Elton John, has seen his farewell tour becoming the highest-grossing tour in history. Farewell Yellow Brick Road has now made more than £660 million. It's expected to be his final tour before retiring from live performances. A trophy is in touching distance on Tyneside for the first time since 1969. That's after Newcastle beat Southampton last night for a place in the final of the Carabao Cup. The Toon Army haven't reached a cup final since 1999, so for the first time this century, the next stop for players and for their fans is Wembley. Here's Pablo Taylor.
We're going to Wembley!
The scenes outside St James's Park last night tell you all you need to know about how important this win was to Newcastle. This club has huge support and now, under its Saudi owners, huge ambitions too. Despite taking a 1-0 lead into the game against Southampton, there were no signs of complacency from the hosts. Local lad Sean Longstaff with this strike inside 5 minutes to double their aggregate lead. Not since 1999 have Newcastle reached a major final, when Longstaff was just a year old. At times last night, it seemed it was just him driving them back to Wembley. 2-0 up after 20 minutes, but the match wasn't done there. This special strike from Che Adams putting Southampton back in the game.
Not giving up yet! That's what we have to do.
As the full-time whistle went, though, St James's Park erupted into celebration. This result, a sign perhaps that after the Saudi-backed takeover, the tide is turning on Tyneside.
Absolutely electrifying, and what a great team performance.
Fantastic, mate. Absolutely amazing. I mean, long time coming at it.
The city's just buzzing. You know, it's just. I've never seen it like this. We're going to Wembley.
But while the celebrations continue, the focus must soon turn to the Carabao Cup final at the end of this month. Their opponents are likely to be Manchester United, the team that last beat them at Wembley 24 years ago. Pablo Taylor, ITV News.
Before we go, when a tiny, harmful radioactive capsule got lost in Western Australia, emergency services knew it simply had to be found. But the scale of the task was daunting. It was lost by a mining company along a huge remote road. The size of the search, 1,400 kilometres, similar to going from John O'Groats in Scotland to Land's End in Cornwall. The size of the capsule, 6 millimetres by 8 millimetres, like a pea. It's taken a month, but they've done it, describing it as literally finding the needle in the haystack. That's it this lunchtime. Mary's here at 6:30. Bye-bye.